TYT's got a new audio network, guys, and you're gonna love it. We got our existing shows, but on top of that, we've got a whole new slate of shows coming out that are in podcast form, including the Jimmy Dore Show. So now nobody does comedy like Jimmy. He is super aggressive and sometimes harsh and often irreverent, but he's gonna give it to you like he sees it. There's no question about that. So you're gonna love this podcast. He's gonna have some of the top comedians and comedy writers on there. So if you wanna check that out along with the entire audio network, go to tyt.com/audio.
The little girl who was featured in a photo that went viral in relation to the zero tolerance immigration policy apparently was not separated from her Honduran mother. Now, this is a 2-year-old girl. This photo, of course, has gone viral, not just the original photo itself, but the Time cover featuring the little girl being stared down by Donald Trump. And so the update to the story is that the little girl was not actually separated from her mother. That's according to Dennis Valera, who is the little girl's father. He has spoken to the press, both CBS and to the Washington Post, and said, no, they were both detained, but they were detained together. The girl's father told the Washington Post on Thursday night that his child and her mother were not separated, and a US Customs and Border Protection spokesperson confirmed that the family was not separated while in the agency's custody. And so conservatives are now jumping on this, saying, you see that, it's fake news, they weren't even separated. Yeah, but 2,500 minors were separated, and this also symbolizes and perfectly illustrates how traumatic it is for a little girl, a little kid, to see her mother get patted down and arrested right in front of her. Whether they were together or not in the end, yes, that matters, but it still shows how traumatic the situation is for children involved.
By the way, just so you know, the reason that you couldn't get a lot of pictures of other kids who actually were separated is because they're in detention centers.
Right.
So, and the government doesn't give you access to them. Zach Ringelstein, a progressive Democrat in Maine, is a candidate. He drove all the way from Maine down to the border to bring toys and blankets and books to the kids. He was arrested. They won't even let US congressmen and senators into most of those buildings. And now the other part of this is that I actually don't think a lot of outlets, I could be wrong about this, but it was in our reading of it and in our coverage of it, not a lot of outlets said we know for sure that that girl was separated. They just said it's a crying girl at the border. And now if you want to say, hey, they said that at the same time that they were talking about kids being separated, that's true. But I don't know that everybody made that connection. But it's always good to find out the facts. Right. And unlike the other side, we're happy to say, hey, fantastic, they weren't separated. That's good, right? The other side would be like, oh yeah, but I think they were. I think they were, right? Yeah. They just, they deny it, they strongly deny it.
I come here every week for that impression, you know? You know what I think is really interesting? How quickly they found so much information about this little girl, her backstory, her father in Honduras. You know, they tried to demonize the mother for leaving her other children. You know, in America, these are the images that are gonna be embedded in history forever about this period of time. The black woman in Louisiana standing in front of the SWAT during the Alton Sterling case with her hands out like this, with all of the people with all the riot gear. This little girl is a representation of all of those little girls and little boys who are in detention centers who people cannot locate right now, that we are raising money to find and help. And you know, I'm just so tired of hearing this whole thing about the media, the fake news. The news that's real to us, because we're going out into the communities with the actual people who are being hurt by this, is that this is not fake. This is really happening. And whatever media outlet spins whatever it needs to spin for to tell their story, this is real to those people who are suffering. The people you keep calling illegal immigrants, and the natives are here to tell you they're still alive, they're still around, to let you know that you too are illegal immigrants on their land.
Yeah, one of the weirdest things about this story, and it happens quite a bit with a lot of the issues that we see, is that it quickly devolves into these weird meta debates about how we're supposed to talk about them. Like, I remember seeing people like measuring chain link fences, whether to see if we can call them cages that we're putting the children in or not, or whether it's fair to compare with the separation of children from their mothers to what happened in the Holocaust. Like, it becomes like this weird kind of meta distraction over the central issue, which is we're literally stealing babies at the border from their parents. I mean, it's so bizarre how we keep doing this.
So I'll give you an example of these ridiculous meta debates. I was debating Michael Reagan today on Fox 11, which is a local Fox affiliate, on this issue on immigration. And I used the phrase children being ripped away from their parents. And he stopped, he's like, they're not being ripped away from their parents. I'm like, okay, how would you characterize it? Do you think that these kids are just pleasantly walking away from their parents, like giving consent? No, they're being ripped away from their parents. That's exactly what's happening here. And so it's a distraction. It's a way to distract from the real issue at hand. And that issue is a policy that is needlessly cruel and unfairly characterizes people looking for asylum as criminals, as animals, as monsters.
And you know what, that Fox commentator, the Cuban woman who's married to the senator in Wisconsin, who said that she talked to her African-American friends and they said that those kids were living in better conditions than they live in the projects. First of all, I don't believe you have any African-American friends, because they don't say gosh, as Black Twitter let you know today. And then the other thing is, the amnesia that some Cuban Americans get when they were getting asylum in Miami, where I'm from. They were seeking asylum and America welcomed them in, and we're sending the Haitians back. And we keep trying to act like this is not a matter of the hue of people's skin and where they're coming from. A lot of Europeans migrate to America illegally, and their children are not taken away from them.
Yeah, I remember that Cubans being pretty upset at when Elian Gonzalez was sent back.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So if look, we all should care about the kids. I hope, and I've said this a million times. Whether we agree or disagree on how long they should stay, whether they should be allowed to stay in the long run, etc. For the time that they are here, we should treat them humanely. I can't believe we have disagreement over that, but apparently we do. But especially if you're Cuban American and you were welcomed into this country, no questions asked, and your kids were welcomed, and you were irate when Elian Gonzalez was sent back, right? Of all people, you should be open to these immigrants that are coming in and understand their plight.
But propaganda on this issue is super effective. I mean, today Trump had this ridiculous immigration event where he used, really tragic stories of people who have lost family members because of undocumented immigrants causing crime, or committing crimes, I should say. But of course, there's no discussion about the broader picture. It's using anecdotal, evidence to prove their point, which is honestly inaccurate if you look at the broader picture. If you look at, there's a study done, it's a 3-decade-long study that was done by researchers at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. They looked at 3 decades worth of data to see whether or not immigrant communities or the influx of immigrants in the country actually led to an uptick of crime in the United States. It did not. In fact, in certain parts of the country that were known for having immigrant communities, there was actually a huge drop in violence and crime. But no one ever talks about the broader picture. I mean, he's exploiting people who went through something so tragic just to make his inaccurate political point, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Kilmeade on Fox this morning was like, yeah, sure, we might be treating these children kind of bad, but at least they're not like our children, like meaning like American children.
We treat our children pretty poorly as well.
Of course we do. But like he was saying, like he was okay with the mistreatment of children so long as they were not American. I mean, and that's just pure, unbelievable, like unbridled racism, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, one last point. I wish that these kind of iconic pictures did not matter as much, because I wish that people could see the numbers and could understand the concepts and care just as much. But unfortunately, the pictures do matter. So the civil rights movement spent a long time setting the ground for reporters to show up in Selma, Alabama, so that when the New York Times reporter took the picture of the dog trying to bite the young African-American man who was stoic and did not respond, those kind of pictures made a giant difference because it was emotional. And I wish the country was more logical overall and less based on emotion, but but we're humans and we are. So that's why that picture of the crying girl resonated to people. And saying that, well, okay, at least she wasn't ripped away, does not solve the 2,500 other crying children whose pictures you didn't see. Two easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.